Alrighty, so for my first video since I've returned, I think what I'm going to do is show you guys my complete DVD collection. This is probably going to take a while, so I might break it up into 2 or 3 parts. I haven't decided yet. And this is going to include DVD and Blu-rays because I'm too lazy to split them up, honestly. So, yeah, let's get started. And VHS tapes. It's going to include VHS tapes too. Milo and Hodis. This is... Where is it? There it is. This is a kind of a fun movie from my childhood. Put it back. It's a fun movie about a cat and a dog, and I know there's a lot of controversy around it with the whole animal cruelty thing, but, you know, whatever. Then there's Adventures of Clutch Powers. This is a Lego movie I used to like when I was a kid. Alex Rider, Operation Stormbreaker, spy movie. A lot of people who read the book don't like it. I'm okay with it, but I haven't read the book. Back to the Future, complete trilogy. That's one of my favorite trilogies ever. Better Off Dead with John Cusack. This is a fun comedy. I'd recommend that to anyone who likes funny movies. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Don't lynch me yet, but I have not watched this movie. I know that a lot of people say that's one of those movies you need to see, but I haven't yet, and I will eventually. Next up is The Blind Side. I watched this movie. I really liked it. You know, it's a very touching story. Sandra Bullock, I think, won an Oscar for it, and that's, yeah, she really deserved that. Next is The Breakfast Club, one of my favorite movies ever. Great teen movies. I love John Hughes. Bridge to Terabithia, very faithful adaptation of the book, which I like. The only thing that really wasn't loyal was there's kind of a big CGI fight scene in this, which I don't think needed to be there. But otherwise, it's a good adaptation. Next up is Dinotopia. This is a mini-series with Wentworth Miller from Prison Break. It's about 4 hours long, and I think it's pretty good. It's too bad it never caught on. I think they should try again to make that series, but give it a bigger budget and let it be on Netflix or HBO. Next up is, where is it? There we go. A Christmas Story. Now, this is such a classic movie right here. Love that. Next up is Cloverfield. I think this movie's okay. It's a, you know, decent found footage movie. I think 10 Cloverfield Lane is better because it wasn't found footage. Yeah, next up is Courageous. I haven't watched this yet. I really like the Kendrick brothers as filmmakers, though. I would want to get into them. Next up is Diary of a Wimpy Kid 1 and 2. Those are pretty funny movies from my childhood that I really liked. Next up is Die Hard. Oops. Die Hard on Blu-ray. It's one of my favorite action movies ever. Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman are great. Next up is The Disaster Artist on Blu-ray, which I will upload my review for pretty soon. Dracula Untold. This is an underrated movie. I feel like the Universal's Dark Universe would have succeeded if this was the first chapter instead of Mummy. Next up is 8 Below. Rip Paul Walker. I think this is a pretty good movie. Haven't watched it in a while, though. Aragon. Don't kill me, but I watched the movie before I read the book, and the movie's okay, but the book's a lot better. Fast and Furious franchise. All of them except the most recent one. Decent franchise. I mean, they're just stupid action movies, but they're fun. They're enjoyable, but not much more. Next up is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. This is a fun movie. One of my favorites. John Hughesy. Flight of the Navigator, kind of a fun 80s movie. Galaxy Quest. This movie right here is very entertaining. So if people like sci-fi comedy, this is really good. It has Tim Allen and Alan Rickman in it. And Monk. Ghostbusters 1 and 2. In this type of casing, I really like that. Those movies are alright. I think the first one's kind of overrated. I just didn't enjoy it as much as everyone thought I would. G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. This movie's fine. I mean, it's, you know, stupid action, but it's, you know what, it's enjoyable. Godspell. This is interesting. I really like the musical Godspell, and this is an interesting take on it. The Goonies. This is a fun little 80s adventure movie with kids. Really good performances from a young Sean Astin and a young Josh Brolin. Next up is Gran Torino with Clint Eastwood. This is a great final performance from Clint Eastwood. I really like this one. Even though it's not technically his final performance, it's really good, and he does a really good job directing the movie also. Next up is The Green Mile. I haven't watched this yet because I want to read the book first, but I like Stephen King, and I've heard this is one of the better Stephen King movies that's come out. Next up is Harry Potter, whole franchise, except Fantastic Beasts. Great franchise. That's kind of, a lot of people say that, like, superheroes are the modern day mythology, and I feel like Harry Potter was kind of the mythology before that for, like, people in the early 2000s, before the MCU, late 90s, early 2000s, and I grew up with that series, and it's really good. Next up is the Hobbit trilogy, all on Blu-ray. Oops. Yeah, too many of these stick. There we go. Hobbit trilogy on Blu-ray. That's an okay trilogy. I mean, Lord of the Rings is better, but it's decent. Hoodwinked, this is an animated movie from when I was a kid. I'm gonna skip that. I'm gonna skip this. Hot Pursuit, fun John Hughes comedy, like Better Off Dead. This one's a little more serious. It's a comedy, but it's not as slapsticky as Better Off Dead is. Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2 or Part 2. It's fun. Kind of Charlie Sheen at the beginning of his career. This one makes fun of Top Gun. This one makes fun of Rambo. I like these. I like movies that make fun of other movies. Then Hunger Games, all of them except Mockingjay Part 2. That's an okay series. I know a lot of people kind of went crazy about it when it first came out, and you know, I read the books and I thought they were good, and I watched the movies and they were fine. You know. Then there's Hugo. I really like Brian Selznick's The Invention of Hugo Cabret. That was a pretty good adaptation. Ice Age and Ice Age: The Meltdown. Those are fun kind of animated movies. I like those when I was a kid. Independence Day. This movie's fun. You know, it's a fun kind of cheesy action movie. Very, very late 90s. It's enjoyable, but not much more. Indiana Jones, whole franchise. Haven't watched Raiders of the Lost Ark in a while. My favorite was The Last Crusade when I was a kid, but if I watch all 4 of them again, I might switch that around. Next up is Jurassic World. I think I have the old 3, the original Jurassic Park trilogy on VHS somewhere. I'm not sure though. But that's a decent follow-up. I like Chris Pratt and the other new characters. Kill Bill and Kill Bill Volume 2. I haven't watched these yet, but I really like Quentin Tarantino as a director, so I might want to get into those. There's Karate Kid, whole franchise except the remake. That's fun. The original is one of my favorite movies ever, and the other ones, they're fine. Kung Fu Panda, it's a funny animated movie I had from when I was a kid. Here we go. For this show, first up is the Lego Movie. That's a fun kids movie. You know, I really like the animation and I really like the message behind it. Life of Pi. It's not one of my favorite movies ever, but it's one of my favorite books ever. It's very philosophical, and Yann Martel does a great job. And I think Ang Lee does a good job adapting it to the screen also. 2 versions of Lord of the Flies. I read this book when I was a high school freshman, and these 2 movies are pretty good. I think I like this one more, but I think this one was more loyal to the book. Chronicles of Narnia trilogy. This is a very underrated trilogy, if you ask me. I feel that the movies, except maybe the middle one, captured the essence of C.S. Lewis's book really well. Up is the Maze Runner 1 and 2. I haven't gotten around to buying the Death Cure yet, but it's this is a pretty good series. The books were not that great. I mean, they were fine, and so the movies do the best they can. Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. This is one of my favorite movies that year it came out. It's about kind of a socially awkward teenager who finds out that one of his classmates is dying of cancer, and so he decides to go and like be her friend and try to actually connect with someone for once, and it's really touching. One Crazy Summer. This is a fun John Cusack comedy. This one I think is my favorite out of all those comedies he did in the early 80s. Next up is The Outsiders, the complete novel. This has some other scenes not included in the theatrical release. It's a really good story, very good adaptation of S.E. Hinton's novel. All the casting is great too. Skip that. This is Paul Blart and Paul Kopp. It's a funny movie. I remember enjoying it when I was a kid. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief. I'm kind of ashamed of the fact that I own this movie. It's not good. It's not. Don't watch it. I just bought it because I don't even remember why I bought it. It's not good. Just don't even bother. Next up is Pirates of the Caribbean 1 through 4. I don't have Dead Man Tell No Tales yet. This series is okay. It's one of the better series in Hollywood that's not an adaptation. The best one is obviously Star Wars. But that's one of the better ones if you take out everything that's an adaptation. Obviously the first one's the best, and the rest are alright. Now we have Psycho 1, the original, and then 2, 3, and 4. Psycho 1's a classic, but it doesn't hold up super well. Psycho 2 I liked. If I ever do a ranking video, I might put that at the top of my list. 3 is okay and 4 was okay. Next up is Pulp Fiction. Quentin Tarantino's good director, like I said. Then there's Rango. That's one of my favorite animated movies ever. It's very funny, very cheesy, and has a lot of off-the-wall humor, which I like. Raising Arizona, Nick Cage, Holly Hunter, funny movie. This kind of trashy redneck couple steals a rich person's baby because they find out they can't conceive, and it's just crazy. Then there's Red Dawn, the original and the remake. That's a lot of people think that it's just kind of American Republican propaganda, but I think they're enjoyable. It's a cool concept, and I know a lot of people don't like the remake, but I thought the remake updated it very well for modern day times. You know what I mean? It gave the story a sense of reality, which I liked, and also I think that it in some ways improves over the original, giving the characters more personality. Next up is Revenge of the Nerds. This is a fun. I have the Panty Raid edition. I need to back up a little. That's a fun, interesting. That's a fun comedy, I know it doesn't hold up. I know a lot of people don't like it because it caused a lot of controversy, but I think it's a fun movie. Next up is Rise of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes. This is one of my favorite trilogies of the recent time, and I don't have Dawn of the Planet of the Apes yet, which is funny because that's my favorite of the three. And I think that Andy Serkis is a great Caesar, and I think that the filmmakers do a good job making a CGI monkey a really likable and a relatable and sympathetic character. Next up is Rodan. I don't know, I just kind of bought this just for the heck of it. I haven't watched it yet, but it's kind of a cheesy 50s, 60s Japanese movie. Next up is The Sandlot. This is a good, kind of heartwarming movie. It's one of those movies every kid should watch. Then I have live-action Scooby-Doo movie on Blu-ray. Now that movie, my opinion on that movie is hard to describe. I made a review for it a long time ago. You can probably find it in my older movie reviews. The movie has a lot of high highs and a lot of high lows. All the casting is good, but it's hard to interpret that type of humor to live action. Next up is The Seeker, The Dark is Rising. That's an interesting movie. Very good performance from a young Alexander, what's his last name? Alexander Ludwig. I wanted to read the book but never did, never got around to it. Next up is The Shawshank Redemption, second best Stephen King movie ever. We'll get to the first one in a minute. This is such a great adaptation, surpasses the book in every way. Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman are so excellent in this movie. That's one of the best movies ever, honestly. Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows. I don't have the first one. I'm pretty sure this was a gift. This franchise was okay. It's a unique take on Sherlock Holmes that I think casual moviegoers will like, but diehard fans of the Sherlock Holmes books will not. Alrighty, sorry if the camera gets a lot more shaky. I had to take it off of my tripod. Next up is Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. I haven't watched that movie in a while. I might revisit it eventually. It's weird, but it's good. Shrek 2. Don't have any of the other Shrek movies. Those are really good, though. Really good animated movies. Short Circuit. That's kind of a funny AI movie. Johnny Five. 16 Candles. One of the better John Hughes movies. The best one's The Breakfast Club, but this is one of the better ones. Next up is Stand By Me. This is the best Stephen King movie ever made. This is pretty much my favorite movie ever made. It's such a good coming-of-age story. I first watched it when I was 12, which is the age the characters in the movie are. Sorry if I'm sniffing a lot. I'm getting over some allergies. All the performances are good. I'll upload a full-length review at some time. Next up is... Can I even do this with one hand? Yes. Star Wars entire franchise, all three prequels, Clone Wars movie, Rogue One, all three originals, Force Awakens, and Last Jedi, and the Story of Star Wars documentary about the making of the movies in the franchise. I'll upload a ranking video later. I might rewatch the prequels before I do that. That's my favorite franchise ever. And the original movie is probably in my top 5 favorite movies ever. The rest of them are good. Let's see, I have Rogue One, Force Awakens, and Last Jedi on Blu-ray. A lot of people don't like The Last Jedi. I really liked it. I think that's the best Disney Star Wars movie so far. I don't have Solo. I'll get that when it comes out. I don't think it's out yet. No, it's not. And the animated Clone Wars movie, it's fine. I mean, the show's a lot better. The movie's, it's fine. Next up is Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness, excuse me. I really love this movie. This is the first Star Trek movie I ever watched, and I never had watched, and I hadn't watched the show before. So this is my introduction into Star Trek, and it's such a great movie. One of the best sci-fi movies ever, which I feel weird saying because it only came out 9 years ago. Then it's an okay sequel. It's fine. Benedict Cumberbatch is honestly probably a better villain than Eric Bana was in the original, but it's not quite as good as the original. Coming up next is Super 8. Now this movie, another one of my favorite movies ever. J.J. Abrams, Steven Spielberg is good. All the kids are really good in the movie, and even the adults like Kyle Chandler do give good performances. The only flaw I can find is that the sci-fi element doesn't quite work super well. I would have maybe adjusted that. Swiss Family Robinson, decent movie. Family gets shipwrecked on an island. Robinson Crusoe story. Top Gun on Blu-Ray. I think that movie is also kind of overrated. Part of it wants to be a drama, part of it wants to be a comedy, part of it wants to be an action movie, and I don't know. It is a feel-good movie. Tom Cruise is really good in it, but Terminator and Terminator 3. I haven't gotten around. I've seen Judgment Day, but I don't own it. I'll buy that sometime. That's a decent, franchise. I mean, Judgment Day is one of the best sci-fi movies ever, and the Terminator, the first one's really good too. And the third one's fine. I mean, it's okay. Next up is Transformers: The Original Trilogy. I don't hate these movies as much as anyone else. I mean, obviously they're not high art or as good as a lot of the modern day superhero movies are, but they're fine. They're watchable. Tron Legacy. This is an interesting movie. It's such an interesting concept, and I feel like this is the second one in a franchise. And I think like this movie and the first movie really could have. Oh no, I have the first one. Forgot about that, huh? I feel like these movies could have been better if they were a little less just generic action movie and a little more deep, because the concept behind them is really fascinating. Being able to transport yourself into cyberspace. Next up is Troy. I bought this movie just because I read the Iliad in class, and it's good. All the performances are good. Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, Orlando Bloom. Decent adaptation of the original Greek play. Vacation, National Lampoon. Chevy Chase is great in this movie. Fun comedy. Next up is Weird Science. I think that movie was alright. It wasn't as good as some of the other John Hughes movies, though. Ha! This movie. Oh boy. They have to say dealer and dancer because they can't say drug dealer and stripper on the front of a box. That movie's really funny. I really like if you like raunchy comedies, that's your thing. Next up is War Horse. Good Steven Spielberg movie. They do a really good job giving the horse a personality, because I mean the human's not the main character. The horse is the main character. Next up is 3 Clint Eastwood movies. My dad kind of bought these for me, and I was just like, oh, okay. Every Which Way But Loose, Any Which Way You Can, Honky Tonk Man. I've only watched the top 2. Sorry about the glare. These movies they're good. I mean, they're enjoyable comedies. I really like Clint Eastwood's relationship with the orangutan. So yeah, then there's some war movies right there. War, WAR. I've never really watched. I think I just put them down there because my parents might have run out of room on their movie shelf. So yeah. Let me go grab my other shelf of movies and see you guys later.